Okay, how's the audio? I'm streaming from my PC today, so hopefully the bitrate shouldn't be dropping, and we should get consistent. We should have consistent, good quality stream this time. I actually upped the bitrate, so it should be a little less pixelated when it changes images and stuff. Cool. So before I talk about any of this stuff, I'll use this as like a good little background. I want to talk about the different ways you can view the market right now. Because unless you're familiar with looking at different time frames on the market, you may be getting mixed signals depending on who you follow on Twitter or on YouTube. And it's entirely possible that even though you're getting mixed signals from different people's messages, they could all be saying the same thing. Some of the guys that I like to watch, John Bollinger, our boy JB. I like to watch Peter Brandt. These are like classical chartists that have gotten into crypto. John Bollinger's the guy who created Bollinger Bands, which is this indicator right here, which is easily one of the more powerful tools you can use to gain insight on the market. And then of course there's like the crypto guys that are more popular for their crypto analysis. One of which I particularly like, Josh. I'm about to fucking butcher this. Some Polish last name. Josh, we'll say 10K Moku. 10K Moku. 33K Moku. Or is it 30K Moku? I don't know. Some Moku. And he predominantly looks at the higher time frames. Rarely do I really see him go below 12 hour. He watches the 1 day and the 1 week. And I tend to not go above the 1 day. I'll go to the 3 day or the 1 week just to get a better look on what the 1 day trend is showing. But the reason why I don't like to go above 1 day is because I host a trading community where people are intraday trading. So most of my attention is brought to smaller time frame moves below 1 day, which is like anywhere between 30-minute candles to 6 hour, 1 day, 12 hour, things like that. So a lot of my priority is placed on those guys. And so if you're following if you're following me on Twitter and you're following Josh on Twitter, you could be getting two completely different messages from us, but we could both be saying the same thing because we're looking at two different time frames, right? So I could be saying price is going down, price down, bearish market, and Josh could be saying price is relatively flat, slightly going down, still bullish. So how do these two things coexist? Which depends on how zoomed out you are, right? So if we look at this 1 day chart, for example, let's look at something smaller actually. If we look at the 120-minute chart, if this is all you're looking at, you'd be like, oh man, this is going down a lot. It pulled up, it's done a 50% retracement approximately. It's making lower highs, lower lows. This is trending down. Well, okay. But if you zoom out to like the 1 day chart, let's actually get rid of all this stuff here. Let's just have just the candles. And we zoom out. Well, and you're looking at this chart, you could say, oh, this is just a small retracement. And an overall largely bullish trend, right? So if you're looking at this thing, and especially if you're looking at like, you take it off log, this looks like, if you bought down here, this is just a small retracement. So it's important to keep in context like what you're viewing and what your goals are trading and investing, right? If your goal, if you bought in here, say you bought like in the triple digits or something, right? You bought somewhere in here during the accumulation phase, or even like last January when it pulled back, you know, before it broke the 1K barrier here and really just started skyrocketing. You know, your view on the market in here is going to be completely different than someone who bought in here, 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 and especially here because the price is below this zone. The context of my market outlook is the context of the current market. And if someone were to say, should I buy now or should I sell now? That is the lens through which I'm analyzing the market, right? I'm analyzing the market from the perspective of the individual who bought in here or is looking to possibly buy here, right? So if I had some, say I was like a hedge fund manager or I was giving some sort of financial advice, and someone were to come up to me and say, should I be buying right now? That is the tone in which I'm approaching the market and the view through which I'm analyzing the market, which is completely different than what Josh is doing. Josh is more looking toward the macro trend and possibly addressing the tones of which are early adopters, like down in here. You know, if you bought in here and the market pulls back here, this isn't shit. Like this pullback percentage wise isn't, you know, this isn't anything for these folks down here. However, if you bought right here, you know, around Thanksgiving, say you bought like 8K, price shoots up and now it's coming back down, you might be a little worried right now. And especially if you bought up here, you are especially worried because if you're one of the poor individuals that bought around 20K, you know, you just watched in a very short amount of time, your 20K investment dropped by 50%. So you're wondering, how low can this go? And what is my damage tolerance? And should I be selling or should I be buying? So I think different questions get addressed and answered depending on who you're talking to. And for those who don't follow Josh on YouTube, I recommend checking him out. I just watched his last Bitcoin, I think it's called his market recap or something, and you know, I agree with like everything he said. I just don't. We just have different. The lens in which we're viewing this content is different. So just keep that in mind as you're watching this. You know, as you're watching me address the market and you're watching Josh address the market, you know, we're addressing them from completely different perspectives. And we could, even though he's saying we're completely bullish on the higher time scales, I can agree with that while still simultaneously thinking we're due for lower lows. So just keep that in mind. All right. What else did I have to say? I guess that's enough spiel for right now. Let's actually talk about the market here. So let's continue our discussion with this parabolic curve, and let's see what we can pull out of here. So there have been two dominating trends throughout the life of Bitcoin since it, you know, broke out of its accumulation zone. I'm inclined to think that everything above like this level is the markup phase, and everything below this level, you know, going back this way, you know, there was like this little bowl. Everything in here, this is the accumulation phase. So everything above this is markup. Okay, and once it broke out of markup, it had two dominating trends, one of which was a parabolic curve, and one of which was a linear trend, linear channel, right? And the parabolic curve specifically was a dominating trend dating back to 2015. Okay, it's currently 2018. We broke the parabolic trend late last year, and now we're seeing a breakdown of the parabolic move as we're finding that it can't support the move. And let me get a different color here. as we're finding in here that it's failing to support the move, and it's actually breaking down and finding resistance on what was previously support. And let's go ahead and throw the 250 EMAs on here as well. So here's a 50, here's a 200. If you're familiar with my Twitter posts, I've been talking about this distribution trading range right here for a while, which as you zoom out, it actually looks pretty small, but when you zoom in, it's pretty complex. So this box right here is the trading range. And we see here that historically we found really great support on the 200 EMA. And we see here, this sort of price activity right here is called a golden cross. Golden cross. And that occurs when you've got a slow moving average. In our case, we're using the 200. And we've got a fast moving average, something like this. In our case, we're using the 50. And a golden cross occurs when the 50 crosses from the bottom and goes upward. And you know, typically we see both of the slopes of the 200 and the 50 EMA trending upward, indicating that both the current trend and the macro trend are in agreement. So it gives you confidence in a strong follow through, right? Like these are one-day candles. This is a macro trend. Oh, you can't see the golden cross well? Okay. Let's zoom in here. Here's the golden cross right here. Sorry, text box was in the way, huh? So here's the golden cross right here. So you see the 200 EMA, boom. We see the 50 EMA, boom. We see them cross, and the slopes are in agreement. So this gives us a strong bullish continuation. And so for the past 3.5 years, it's been a bull market. And it's currently a bull market. But it's showing signs of weakness at the moment, and I feel like those need to be addressed. So one of the signs of weakness that we're seeing is that, let's zoom in a little bit. So here's a closer look of the at the 1 day. So we see the slope of the 200 EMA still trending upward, so this is good. But we see that the slope of the 50 EMA is actually trending down. And we see that it's providing resistance for the trend. If we look back throughout the life of the trend, it's provided support more times than it's provided resistance. But one thing to note is that, you know, we're failing to break above it. Since we've broken below it, we've failed to break back above it. You know, we failed to do something like this, for example, or this, for example, right? Where we see a candle close above the 50 EMA. So even though it popped up and went above, or it went above and went below, it still had a candle close above the 50 EMA. So we haven't trended below the 50 EMA this long in years, actually, since 2016. We haven't trended below the 50 EMA this long. So let's go here. So we see here we broke below, but it closed above. We broke below, came right back out. We broke below, closed above. And now we're below and finding resistance here for the first time since 2016. This is 2016 right here. And now we're obviously in 2018. So a year and a half, 2 years, whatever you want to call it, whatever. So it's showing signs of weakness. You know, whether you want to call it a bear market, whether you want to call it a bull market, it just depends on the lens in which you're viewing it, right? So tomato, tomato. Point being, since it's made its all-time high, it's retraced 50% and it's continuing downward. So if it makes you feel more comfortable to say it's still a bull market, cool. If it makes you more comfortable to say, well, we're in a bear market, cool. I don't really give a shit. The trend's going to do whatever it's going to do, regardless of whatever you call it. And as we zoom in closer on timescales like the 6 hour, let's make this a little darker. we start to see, oops, let's make this a smaller thing too. Boom. God damn it. As we zoom in closer, we start to see, just like what I was talking about on the daily, how you have a golden cross if you have the 200 and the 50 comes up. A death cross is a 200 trending and a 50 going down. So this is a death cross. So on the 6 hour, as we start to zoom in, we notice that for a few days we've had a death cross here, and the 200 EMA on the 6 hour has provided resistance. So it's starting to lean bearish, and we see a pretty well-defined supply and demand channel right in here that is capturing the highs, capturing the lows, and in my opinion, until we break out of this trend, I think we're due for lower lows. And we even have a little bit smaller trend line here. This guy, that on an even smaller time scale is shown to be a governing trend for this small time frame stuff. So we've got 4 pivot points on there. If we broke this guy, I would start to lean more bullish. And if we broke this, I would lean even more bullish. But I just don't see it. I don't see it happening without a consolidation period to really like send it on home, rally up the troops, and spike it upward. Because right now there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, and there's a lot of overhead resistance. So here's the parabolic curve, parabolic curve, parabolic curve, linear trend line, and we see that it's broken through both of these. It's found resistance on the parabolic curve, found resistance on the linear trend line, and it's just kind of trending downward. What else can we say about this? As we look even closer, I'm going to remove the 50. Actually, I want to put on Bollinger Bands for this. So as we look closer, we start to see that the Bollinger Bands are squeezing here. Let's get rid of you, MACD. No one wants you, MACD. Get out of here. So as we look closer, we see that the 6 hour Bollinger Bands are squeezing here and here. And this is shown here on the, this is, for those who don't know, this is the BBW indicator. And this is percent B. This basically just shows you how squeezed the bands are. But we see that it's squeezing right here, right? Indicating a consolidated market. It's consolidating right along the midline of the B bands right here. And as we zoom out to the 12 hour, we see that the 12 hour is doing something similar. So we're getting a squeeze on the 12 hour. And it's also interesting to note that we're finding resistance on the midline here. And we're finding a nice squeeze here. We're actually along the average level of consolidation for B bands for the 12 hour. So it's very possible we could see a strong move in the next, within the next day. That wouldn't surprise me. Volume's consolidating, price is consolidating. And if you follow Peter Brandt on Twitter, he's calling this a bearish pennant. And I'm inclined to agree with him. So my guess is this squeeze is gonna yield a push downward. And I actually had really nice fib lines at one point. I'm not really sure where the hell those things went. Because this is gonna help us with our price targets for the next move if it does break down. So let's draw some fibs, starting at the bottom of the parabolic curve, like that, and come up to the top of the trading range. Something like that. Well, that'll do. So we see here, wait, what the hell? Oh, I need to change the visibility on it, huh? Visibility. There we go. So for those who like to play with the fibs, we see it's been playing the macro fibs really nicely, and right now it's currently finding support on the 50, but looks like we might go in for a third test here, because it's just failing to rally and push new highs. There is one bullish argument here that I see, is there's a potential double bottom setup. If this fails to break resistance, this makes a double bottom here, but it also sets it up for what's called an Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve double bottom, where this would be Adam, this would be Adam, and this would be Eve, with a neckline here and a price target of, what is this? This is 13K. Let's call this 10K. So a 3K move upward will be 16K. Somewhere along here. That would be the price target. But you know, this is all speculation at this point. We got to see, we got to see if it breaks down and retests the 50, and B, how it reacts to the test of the 50, right? So a lot up in the air at the moment. This 12-hour squeeze is looking like it's, you know, the more and more the trend consolidates along the midline, the faster this is going to consolidate, and the faster we're going to get a little squeeze here. But you can see here that like previous breakouts have occurred on wider squeezes than this. So you know, you don't need to wait for this to become this or this to see a strong move, or this to see a strong move. They're consolidated, and a macro move is likely to take place, in my opinion. A sustained macro move. Given the arguments that I presented earlier, I'm inclined to think it's going to move down and test support right in here. That's horrible. Test support here, and most likely it'll find support on the daily 200, because that's that's the 50 on the daily 200. Like I said earlier, it's been historic support. But you know, if it does find support there, I wouldn't be surprised to see it wick down to the 61 and see how far down the tendrils can stretch, and you know, and retest this trend line here as well. But you know, it's not just gonna like, you know, just shit the bed and go crashing down if it does go down. Hey Schmidt, is that a B-band W bottom on the daily candles? Are you talking about this? So no, it wouldn't be a B-band double bottom on the daily, because the if you want a B-band double bottom, you would want something like, so if this is the B-bands, like this, right? You would want price to come down outside. Let's do a different color. You'd want price to come down outside the B-bands, come in, make a new low, but be inside the B-bands. So you see that the lows are going down. The B-bands are curving, and that's just not what we're seeing here. So because we made a lower low out here. I mean, so you can make an argument that it is a W bottom on the B-bands, but John Bollinger makes a specific argument that not enough emphasis is placed on wicks, and so he specifically uses, John Bollinger is the guy who made the Bollinger Bands. He makes a specific argument that not enough emphasis is placed on the wicks, and so he uses candles called Bollinger bars, which instead of wicks, you know, the body will be colored, and the top will be colored too. So instead of wicks, he shows the bars because he doesn't think enough emphasis is placed on that. So, you know, you can. Personally, I don't think it's a W bottom, because you know, we see the wicks way out here, and we don't see wicks lower than the wicks. So it doesn't meet the criteria, in my opinion. If you cut the wicks, it looks like it. Yeah, of course if you cut the wicks, but you could say that about any trend, right? Like, I mean, if you cut the wicks on a lot of trends, things start to reveal themselves. But in terms of the Bollinger Bands, since they encapsulate volatility, I think you gotta include the wicks for the double bottom. You know, it is important where the daily candle closes. I fully acknowledge that. But yeah, I don't know. Like when I see something like this doesn't say W bottom to me. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just an ignorant piece of shit and I don't understand W bottoms, but from what I've seen, that doesn't meet the criteria. Someone else said decreasing volume on each rally, low confidence on the rallies makes the bull case seem unlikely. Yeah, I agree. So basically what he's saying is if we look at something like the 6 hour, or let's do the 2 hour. Each time the market has rallied, like here, for example, we see decreasing volume here. Same thing here. As it goes up, we see decreasing volume here. And vice versa. As the price goes down, we see increasing volume. As the price goes down, we see increasing volume. And yeah, just got to play it by ear. What is the lower purple line from? That's what I talked about earlier in the stream. It's the linear trend line. It's the historic linear trend line. Okay. Something else to note here too. So this kind of looks like a bear flag. Current trend looks like a bear flag. You know, a little rough and dirty because it's wicking outside of it a lot, but you know, I can see an argument for this being a bear flag. Let's clean up some of this stuff in here. Let's get rid of you and you. So this could be a potential bear flag here. Although it's seeing a little pop-up above these fib lines here, overall volume is still going down. So volume's consolidating here throughout the length of the bear flag. And you can make an argument that this is a pole here, of a 3K pole from here to here. Here's the flag. And so if it broke down here, for example, at 11K, it would have a 9K price target somewhere down here. Which makes sense because if it's a 9K price target, it would come right in line with a test of the demand line for this channel. This channel right here, this little bro. Okay. Any other questions on Bitcoin before we move on to the other coins? Any thoughts on CME futures affecting price tomorrow? No. I've heard both bullish and bearish arguments for what could affect price, and at the moment I'm agnostic about it. I'm agnostic regarding the impact of the CME futures. Any other questions on for Bitcoin? All right, let's move on. Onward. Let me get a sip of kombucha. if you look at Ether Bitcoin, I was literally about to do that. So yes. So I have it right here. So let's look at Ether Bitcoin price history and disregard that big ass wick. Let's look at the daily. Okay, so here's Ether Bitcoin. Overall, we see that lower or higher lows, higher highs is the name of the game. It's got a pretty nice channel going on here. Something to note too is that each time there's been a significant rally, there's been a significant level of accumulation here and here and now here. I'll go into more detail about what's going on here in a second, but let's take note about the trend. So we see that once it breaks out of the accumulation trading range, like here, it sees a very strong move, and then a bull pennant, and then a continuation. And if we zoom in here, we see the same sort of dealio. So it breaks out of its trading range. Boom. See a very strong bull pennant, something like that, and then it continues upward. You can even argue that this is a little bull pennant too, you know, whatever. Or that this is the bull pennant, you know, however you want to look at it. You could argue that this is the bull pennant, especially because we see the one-day Bollinger Band squeezing, leading to a strong follow-through. So this is probably the better argument, isn't it? Let's call this the bull pennant. And now, with the current market, we're seeing the same thing. And it's actually kind of like the same sort of price activity too. So let's make some comparisons right here. So trading range, accumulation trading range here, a very strong move upward into a bull pennant. Oops, bull pennant. And now we're seeing the same thing, a very strong move into another bull pennant. Okay. One-day B-bands aren't quite as consolidated here, but if we look at the 12-hour, current bull pennant is quite consolidated on the B-bands. It's squeezing really nicely. I think the one-day might need to consolidate longer, but the volume is actually fairly consolidated here. So when we look at the 12-hour view, we see a nice bull pennant again. Pull length from here to here, which is what? This is 0.06, and this is 0.1. Let's call that 0.1. So pull length equals 0.1 minus 0.06, which equals 0.0, which equals 0.04, right? So that would mean a projected move, a measured move from the breakout. Let's say it breaks out at 0.95 or 0.1, whatever. It breaks out, you're just going to add wherever the breakout point is plus 0.04. That's the typical price. Jesus, that's the typical price target for this pennant. So it looks very bullish. Ether Bitcoin looks very, very bullish from both a trading range standpoint, a markup standpoint, and a Bollinger Band standpoint. So keep an eye out for Ether Bitcoins. It looks like it wants to mark up bigly. I think the one day just needs to consolidate a little bit longer. And honestly, if the longer the one day consolidates, the stronger the move is likely to be. But you can see here that you know, the volume can only consolidate so much before it ultimately pops. So I wouldn't be surprised if the one day doesn't consolidate longer and the 12-hour pops. But also important to keep in mind too is that just because we have a bull pennant here doesn't mean it's going to be a straight shot upward. This is something I was trying to emphasize in the failed stream from yesterday. Just because we saw a straight shot upward like this from here to here and from here to here doesn't mean that it's going to be smooth sailing indefinitely, right? So we could see something like this where it makes a bull pennant. You see breakout and yay, and then it retests and you're like, oh shit, sell, sell, sell. And then it continues upward to its price target up here. Right, this is the ultimate price target of this pennant here. So keep in mind that if Bitcoin decides to pull back, like what I'm anticipating, it's likely that Bitcoin pulls back. Well, Ether could overcompensate and pull back further, which would yield something like this, right? So if Ether pulls back faster than Bitcoin, the price is gonna have a knee-jerk pullback on the Ether Bitcoin ratio before it follows through up here. So don't think just because it looks uber bullish that it's just smooth sailing. You're gonna see some chop along the way if Bitcoin decides to pull back. Any questions about that? No questions? Okay. Let's of course look at well, what do we want to look at? Thinking of buying Litecoin soon. If you had USD, would you buy Litecoin or Ether? I hate that question. I hate that question because that's just not good risk management to just be like, I'm going to buy Bitcoin, Litecoin, or Ether. Why wouldn't you just buy all three? Even if you don't know anything about the market, why wouldn't you just buy all three? Can you look at OMG? Yeah, I'm going to look at OMG. First, let's look at the Bitcoin pair. So let's get rid of this stuff here. And first, let's look at this. So here's OMG BTC. You see it's consolidating in this sort of like pennant dealio here. Like this. Volume's consolidating. It's kind of a sloppy pennant though, but it's breaking out of this trading range here. Like that, where this would be the spring. Here's the markup, and we know it's in markup because it's not making lower lows anymore. Here, it's making higher highs, higher lows, and it's not likely going to pull back very far if it does pull back. So, one other thing to note is on the one-day B-bands, we see it's starting to squeeze. And as we look at things like one really great indicator, I'm not like a master of Ichimoku Cloud by any stretch of the imagination, but one of the best ways I've found to use it, let's get rid of the Bollinger Bands here. One of the best ways I've found to use it is to identify breakout and breakdown on a macro basis. And one of the ways that I like to do that is first I'm gonna spot coins that are in accumulation or distribution. and then I'm gonna start drawing lines in them, right? So I'm like, okay, this looks like a accumulation. So I start drawing lines of support. Boom. And once it starts to bottom out, that's when I start paying more attention and start looking at the Ichimoku cloud. So part of the anatomy of the Ichimoku cloud is it's comprised of like a series of you can think of them as like moving averages, so like the moving average is delayed as a delayed indicator, but it provides support. The Tenkan and Kijun of the Ichimoku cloud also provide that. So let's go ahead and label out some of the anatomy here. So here's the Kumo. Sometimes people just call it the cloud. So someone says, oh, it's finding cloud support. That means that the price came down, bounced off the cloud. Or if you're seeing Josh talk about an edge-to-edge play, it means that once the price closes inside the cloud, it has a high likelihood of continuing to the other end of the cloud and then bouncing out or breaking through. So you can make plays based off of that. But regardless, this is called the Kumo. Okay. This is called the Chiku span or the lagging span. Lagging span. And then just like with the 50 and the 200 EMA, as we use for like the golden cross and the death cross, the cloud also has something like that where it has a slow and a fast moving average. The slow moving average is the Kijun. I'm probably going to mess this up. So if I mess this up, correct me because I'm bad at remembering the names. The slow moving average is the Kijun. And the fast moving average is the Tenkan. I think I got that right. And then within this whole Ichimoku cloud system, it's a very, very nuanced and powerful tool set. But for me, for what I use, I just use it to identify levels of support, which what we're seeing here. It's finding support on the Kijun. And we're seeing the lagging span penetrating the cloud, which means that it's looking bearish on a macro scale. And now what we're seeing here is price is trending upward through the cloud. Both the Tenkan, it's called the Kaijun. Okay, whatever. The Kaijun is trending upward. And so everything is looking upward and onward for OMG BTC, which is great because it spent a long time getting chopped to shreds on the USD pair. So I'm very bullish on OMG here. And if we look at the USD pair, we see a similar sentiment here on higher time frames. So if we're looking at the, let's get the 1 day. So we look at the 1 day. Oh, there's not enough history for that? Okay, let's look at the 12-hour then. If we look at the 12-hour, we see it broke out of a trading range. Right in here, this is the trading range. And we're finding nice support on the 200 EMA here. But what's most important to note is that it's not making lower lows. It's continuing this upward trend. Important thing to note though is that just because the OMG BTC pair is showing strength and it's in markup, that does not mean that the OMG USD pair is not going to break below this temporarily and then continue upward. If Bitcoin decides to pull back, it's very likely that OMG is going to pull back harder because that's just what it does. Like we've seen it here, we've seen it here. So it's very likely that if Bitcoin pulls back, OMG goes and then it just immediately wicks back up. So could be some really good knife catching going on for this, but in general, I think OMG is looking really strong against BTC, and it's going to show some strength on the USD pair as well in the coming weeks. And the same story for NEO. So if we're looking at the NEO 1 day, it looks very bullish. Same sort of sentiment as I expressed for OMG. Same thing, lagging span, sticking up. both the fast and slow spans are pointing up. It's finding support on the Tenkin right here, and you know, we see a bullish cross here, or a bullish twist there, and now it's kind of just consolidating in here with price and in volume. So NeoBTC is also looking very strong. And similarly on the USD pair, same sort of dealio. So if you look at like the 1 day, or let's look at the 12 hour. If you look at the 12 hour, you know, it's finding support on the 50 EMA. It's consolidating on the B bands here. And price and volume are consolidating. So it looks like it's going to have a nice solid markup fairly shortly. What are your thoughts on ADA? It looks like a decent squeeze. I don't know what time frame you're looking at. What time frame are you referring to? Gotta give me some context, bruh. Oh, also let's talk about Bcash. So Bitcoin Cash. Sorry, Roger. Don't get butthurt because I called it Bcash. There's a nice trading range here for the BTC pair, BCH BTC. And right now it's at the bottom of the trading range, and it looks a lot like accumulation to me, because we see here this nice creek like this. This sort of thing is called the creek, where it's like meandering price activity on decreasing volume. Any sort of buy injection here, 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 or here is easily stifled with minimal sell volume. And now we're at the bottom of the trading range, so I would not be surprised to see another shakeout, and possibly a new low from here to do one last spring before it pushes back up. It's totally possible it could just break down and keep going down, but I feel fairly bullish on this, and I think it's showing signs that it's an accumulation. Nothing to really freak out about, but I'll be looking to buy right in here, right around the 0.13, 0.13. That's where I'm looking to buy personally. That's not financial advice. In fact, none of this is financial advice. I'm just giving you my personal opinions. This is for entertainment purposes only. So what else do I have plotted here? Yeah, I have ICX here. Oh, I did this one last night. I couldn't get a read on this. The volume just looks really weird for ICX. It looks very weird just because it's like the volume's flat, and we just see these like outliers of candles like this. And whenever I see stuff like this just reeks of like pump and dump. In my opinion, volume's flat. We just see these huge outliers here. I wouldn't be looking to touch this coin for a trade, personally. Let's look at ADA. ADA Bitcoin. You're saying it's squeezing on the 4 hour? It's not squeezing on the 4 hour. 1 day is a really nice squeeze though. 1 day looks like a giant bull pennant. So here's 1 day. This looks pretty bullish actually. Here's a classic bull pennant here with a nice squeeze on the B bands. Volume is consolidated. This is 88 BTC, by the way. This would have a pretty strong markup. What is this? This is 2,600 Satoshis. And this is what? 95. Damn. This is 9,500. This is like a 3x markup. So what is that? That's 7K around. Let's just say 7K Satoshis. So if it breaks out here at 6,500, it's likely going to go to like 1,300. Or no, 13,000 Satoshis. If this breaks out. I need to take a closer look at this. Because sometimes things like this, where they're just like outright bull pennants, sometimes they actually end up breaking down and they're actually a more complicated trading range. So this is just my cursory view of it, that it looks like a bull pennant with consolidated volume. So if we take a closer look, what does this look like? This looks a bit like a trading range here. If we draw a line here, draw a line here, draw a line here. Probably a line here. Yeah, this looks like a decent trading range. And this kind of looks like, all right, so here's my, this looks like reaccumulation. So typically with reaccumulation, it's not letting me use my thing. Okay. Typically with reaccumulation, we see this like strong buying climax, right, like right here. You know, you see the automatic reaction, and then ultimately finds a bottom somewhere here, and then you know it starts to ping around as people with large amounts of money start to test the limits of the market, and that's how it develops this trading range. It starts to like, it's people testing, they're like prodding the market, like how far can I push it up, how far can I push it down, if I push it up this high, like is it likely to gonna collapse? If I push it down this low, is it likely gonna break down? So every time you see these like tests, I really wish I could draw on my screen. Okay, whatever. So as you see tests like this and like this, these are people with large amounts of money seeing what the limits of the market are. And so right now this looks like reaccumulation. We see this like, again, meandering price activity like this as the volume kind of just tapers away. And now right here you can argue that this is a jump across the creek because what can I draw? Yes. Okay, so we see here this would be the creek. This would be the jump across the creek right there. So this would be our JAC. And it looks like it might have bottomed out here. So we can argue that this is like some sort of spring. Although springs like to penetrate the trading range, because it's whipped so hard here, you can argue that this is maybe the bottom of the trading range, and this would be the spring. However you want to call it, it looks like it bottomed out. It had a strong jump across the creek here. with wide candle spread, and now it's doing its BUEC, BUEC, another jump across the creek here, and we're likely going to see like a retest here, and then maybe a mark upward, but this looks pretty bullish in my opinion. But what do I know? Of course, we got to look at Siacoin. Siacoin, the golden pony. So here's the BTC pair. Let's go to the 720 view. Okay, so it spent a long time in accumulation. You know, you can argue that this is accumulation down here. That maybe this is accumulation like that. Let's look at it through that perspective. However you want to argue it, obviously Siacoin found its bottom. It jumped across, made this gigantic bull pennant, and marked up. And now we're seeing consolidating volume, a possible bottom here. And a one-day squeeze that is breaking to the bottom. So this could be a head fake. There's a number of things going on, but one of the things that sticks out to me with Siacoin is that with each jump, like 1, 2, 3, we see higher volume. 1, 2, 3, which is bullish. And on the pullback, we don't see much volume at all, meaning that all these guys that bought in here, like, they're not selling. They're just hanging on to it. And these people that are selling in here are just the quote-unquote, like, weak hands, whatever you want to call it. But it still looks bullish in my opinion. It had a strong pullback, but it also had a strong jump. So, you know, you can't really fault it too much for pulling back this hard. But currently it's finding nice support on the 4-hour. This is the 200 EMA. 200 EMA. I'm still holding a lot of Siacoin. I'm not selling it. I'm not seeing anything that looks like this kind of institutional dumping, large holder dumping, anything like that. It looks like it's possibly bottoming out here. Maybe I'll be proven wrong and it just goes to shit, but I don't have any plans to sell it. I bought it way down in here anyway, so. Look at XRP. Yeah, let's look at XRP. Right here. Okay. So let's look at this 120-minute view. So XRP. Oops. Let's go here. So, so here are my fibs that I have drawn for XRP, and they seem to be obeying up really nicely. And we're getting checked here, here, and here. But one thing to note is that it, wait, are my fibs backwards? They are backwards. The fuck? I knew something looked weird. Okay. So when we draw the fibs here, you know, it's getting checked here, 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 and here. And one important thing to note is this pink line right here. Lower highs, here, lower lows here, and something that's slightly bearish is, by slightly I mean it's pretty bearish, is that opposite of Siacoin, as we saw the price going up, we saw volume going up. With XRP, as price goes up, volume's going down, and now as price goes down, volume's going up again. And I would venture to argue that if we see another low, we'll see volume pick up again. But overall, looking pretty bearish right here. It's finding resistance on these fib lines, these macro fib lines. And it has yet to break this ascending trend. So until it breaks this little trend, this little burrow right here, I'm bearish XRP. Someone in my Discord's requesting XLM. Go to XLM too. XLM. This is weird. Okay, I need a second to figure this out. So it has a Bollinger Band squeeze on the daily. This looks weird. Kind of looks like reaccumulation. So draw a line like that. Do it like that. That, and like that. And like this. So, and of course on the top, yeah, right there. So this kind of looks like reaccumulation. This is actually pretty interesting because as the volume makes a new low, it actually goes down. So this is what leads me to believe it's accumulation. So so as the price goes down, volume is picking up until it actually makes these like last few candles, and then it takes a sharp drop, and then buys pick up. But then this rally looks pretty weak here too. This rally looks pretty weak. It's on decreasing volume. But then this rally looks pretty strong. So as it's coming out, volume's going up. And now it's currently finding support on this burrow right here. This could be a sign of strength. So SOS. Yeah, XLM BTC might be in reaccumulation. Something to keep in mind with these trading ranges is like, it's really not ideal to trade inside the trading range. You want to either place your buys on the spring or wait for the breakout, because you can get chopped up for a long time in here. Because just because this breaks out here doesn't mean it's not going to go back down and start chopping back up again. But for the time being, XLM looks like reaccumulation in my opinion. Robinhood app is adding BTC and LTC with no fees right now. I thought it was Ether and Bitcoin, not Litecoin. Was I mistaken? But I'm pretty sure it was Ether and Bitcoin. Oh, while we're kind of just hanging out here, I don't know if you guys are planning on evading the IRS or your government's authority on tax collectors, on tax collection, but one helpful tool that I found to be really nice is CoinTracking.info. It's really fucking sweet. You just like import your it connects all of your exchanges and makes one master portfolio that weights your profits and losses, tells you your current balance, etc. And it also tells you what your current tax implications are based on your country. And it does it all via API. So you just sign up the API code one time and it automatically syncs it. Yeah, I found it really helpful. It's really enlightening to see all your trades in one spot. It automatically uploads your trades. And if you're interested in supporting the stream and you're interested in getting that sort of info, in the description below I have my referral link for CoinTracking.info, and if you're interested in joining CoinTracking's or checking out CoinTracking's services, go via my link and I'll get some kickback for your membership if you decide to join it. Do you ever participate in ICOs? No. I tried to participate in a couple back in the day. Back in the day, I mean last summer. And it was just a pain in the ass because I was like working my day job at the time, and like the ICOs always happen in the middle of the fucking day. So I just never really got around to doing it. Yeah, CoinTracking.info is pretty sweet. Someone in my Discord recommended it to me, and I found it super easy. And I'm not the most programmer savvy, and I found it pretty easy to use. You just generate the API key, and it automatically generates your portfolio and calculates your profits and losses, and it updates automatically every day. So it's pretty nice. Also, if you like my analysis and you're interested in continuing this conversation after the stream, I'm very active in my Discord community. If you want to join that, it's at bitcoinschmitcoin.com. It's all level of trading is welcome. If you're brand new or if you're an experienced bro, you're more than welcome to participate in the discussion. We got a group of I think at this point it's 230 to 250 people. I got to go back and look at the records, but new people are coming every day. So, if you're interested in and what I have to say and what others have to say, then by all means, come join. Okay. Any closing thoughts? Any comments or concerns you guys want to talk about? EOS? What about EOS? Do you have any thoughts attached to that question, or are you just gonna say EOS? Not a jukebox, bro. Oops. All right, so EOS BTC. All right, so EOS BTC has been trending in this nice channel. Oops. It's been in this nice channel where it's, touch the top, touch the bottom, and now it's kind of just hanging out in the middle. And it's testing new highs. So, you can make an argument that this is like a little cup and handle dealio. Cup. Zoom in a little bit. Although the volume profile doesn't fit really nicely. God damn it. Typically what you want to see with a cup and handle is you want to see the volume profile match the shape of the trend. So if you see a trend like this, you want to see the volume also doing that, which isn't really what we see. But, nothing is perfect, but in general, we see a little cup, we see a little handle, and now it's kind of testing this this high, this little like zone right here. But overall, EOS looks very bullish. If we look at things like the 1 day, and we use the same sort of methodology I was referring to earlier with the Ichimoku stuff, we see the same trend with NEO, with OMG, you know, lagging span trending upward, finding support on the Kijun and Tenkan, and you know, price trending upward. So looks very good for EOS BTC in my opinion. I'm looking to buy the dips personally on EOS. I'm very bullish on it on both a macro and micro scale. So I'm basically just waiting for Bitcoin to figure out what the hell it's going to do, and then you know, start buying my altcoins. But for the time being, it's content just to chop it up, and I'm not making any trades until Bitcoin makes a decisive move up or down. I'm sitting mostly in fiat, except for a few of my coins. Then I'm holding some of them, but what other charts have you seen similar to EOS? I just spent the last hour talking about all of them. Neo, OMG, you know, a few others. You have to go back and rewind it. It's what I've been talking about the majority of the stream. All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up. I've been streaming for a little over an hour, so yeah. So if you're interested in joining my trading community and you like what I have to say, then go ahead and check out bitcoinschmitcoin.com, where you can get access to the Discord. Or, you know, if you want to just support me and support streams like this, then just like, you know, drop a like, share the stream, you know, tell your friends, tell your mom and dad, share it on Twitter, get it tattooed onto your neck, get a tramp stamp, whatever. But yeah, every little bit helps. And once again, it's bitcoinschmitcoin.com. Check it out. Join the community. All right, guys, you have a great rest of your day. And don't stare at the charts too long. Bye.